Picture this, a cold, moonlit night in the heart of Scandinavia, where the air is thick with the scent of burning pine, and the sound of ancient chants echoes through the forest. A group of Viking warriors gathers around a roaring fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames as they prepare to honor their gods with a ritual that has been lost to time. This is not just a scene from a saga. It's a glimpse into a world where history, mythology, and mystery intertwine in ways that still captivate us today. Welcome to the hidden world of the Viking sagas, where every ritual tells a story and every story holds a secret. In this video, we're diving deep into 30 lost rituals of the Viking Age, practices that shaped their culture, connected them to the divine, and left behind a legacy shrouded in intrigue. From blood-soaked sacrifices to mystical ceremonies, these rituals reveal a side of the Vikings that goes far beyond their reputation as fierce warriors. So grab your cloak and join us as we uncover the forgotten traditions of the Norse world, where the past comes alive and the mysteries of the sagas await. Stay with us, because by the end of this journey, you'll see the Vikings in a whole new light, and you might just uncover secrets that have been buried for centuries. Now, let's step into the heart of Viking spirituality with the first of these lost rituals, the Blót sacrifice. This was no ordinary ceremony. It was a profound act of devotion, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. At its core, the Blót was a ritualistic offering to the gods, a way for the Vikings to seek favor, protection, and blessings. The sacrifices could range from animals like goats, horses, or cattle to, in some cases, even humans. These offerings were not made lightly. They were acts of deep reverence, meant to honor the gods who governed every aspect of Viking life, from the harvest to the battlefield. The Blót was performed in sacred spaces, often outdoors in groves, near springs, or at specially designated altars known as hurgas. These locations were believed to be imbued with spiritual power, places where the veil between worlds was thin. The rituals themselves were elaborate, involving chants, prayers, and the sprinkling of blood from the sacrificed animal onto the participants and sacred objects. This act of anointing was thought to strengthen the bond between the people and their gods, ensuring prosperity and victory. Among the gods honored during the Blót were Odin, the All-Father, who demanded sacrifices for wisdom and victory in battle; Thor, the protector of mankind, who was offered sacrifices to ensure strength and protection; and Freyr, the god of fertility, who was invoked for bountiful harvests and peace. Each god had their own specific rituals and offerings, reflecting their unique roles in the Norse pantheon. The Blót was more than just a religious act. It was a communal event that reinforced the social fabric of Viking society. It brought people together, reaffirming their shared beliefs and values. Through these sacrifices, the Vikings expressed their gratitude, sought guidance, and acknowledged their dependence on the gods. The Blót was a reminder that, in their world, the divine was ever present, and the rituals they performed were essential to maintaining balance and harmony. As we move forward, the next ritual we'll explore takes us into the realm of the mystical, the enigmatic practice of Seiðr magic, where the boundaries between the seen and unseen worlds blurred and the power of prophecy held sway. But for now, the Blót stands as a testament to the Vikings' deep connection to their gods and the lengths they would go to honor them. Now, let's venture into the shadowy and mysterious world of Seiðr magic, a practice that blurred the lines between the seen and the unseen. Unlike the communal and outward-facing rituals like the Blót, Seiðr was deeply personal, often shrouded in secrecy and intrigue. This form of Norse magic was primarily associated with prophecy, divination, and the manipulation of fate, a power that both fascinated and unsettled the Vikings. At the heart of Seiðr was its connection to Odin, the All-Father, who was not only a god of war and wisdom but also a master of magic. According to the sagas, Odin learned the secrets of Seiðr from the goddess Freyja, making him one of the few male figures associated with this predominantly feminine practice. This duality of a male god practicing a female-dominated art added to the mystique and complexity of Seiðr. It was said that Odin used Seiðr to foresee the future, to weave destinies, and even to influence the minds of others. Yet, despite his mastery, Seiðr was often viewed with suspicion, especially when practiced by men, as it was considered unmanly and contrary to traditional Viking ideals of masculinity. The primary practitioners of Seiðr were women known as völvas. These seers were revered and feared in equal measure, their abilities granting them a unique place in Viking society. A völva would often travel from village to village, offering her services in exchange for food, shelter, or gifts. Her rituals were elaborate, involving chants, drumming, and the use of a staff, which served as a conduit for her magic. During these ceremonies, the völva would enter a trance-like state, communing with spirits and the gods to reveal hidden truths or foretell future events. Her prophecies were highly sought after, especially in times of uncertainty, such as before a battle or during a harsh winter. However, the power of the völvas came with a price. Seiðr was not without its dangers, both for the practitioner and those around her. The magic was believed to draw its strength from the manipulation of fate, a force that could easily spiral out of control. Stories in the sagas often depict Seiðr as a double-edged sword capable of bringing great insight or causing unintended harm. This unpredictability, combined with its association with the supernatural, made Seiðr a controversial practice. While some saw it as a vital tool for navigating life's uncertainties, others viewed it with distrust, associating it with deceit and dark forces. In Viking culture, where honor and strength were highly valued, the practice of Seiðr challenged societal norms. It was a reminder that not all power came from the sword or the plow. Some of it lay in the unseen, in the hands of those who could peer beyond the veil of the present. The völvas, with their enigmatic rituals and otherworldly insights, embodied this duality, standing as both guardians and disruptors of the natural order. As we leave the realm of Seiðr behind, our next journey takes us to a brighter, more celebratory ritual, the Viking Yule festival, a time of feasting, drinking, and honoring the gods as the darkest days of winter gave way to the promise of light. But for now, Seiðr remains a testament to the Vikings' complex relationship with the mystical, a practice that reveals as much about their fears as it does about their faith. Now, let's step into the warmth and light of the Viking Yule festival, a time when the long, dark nights of winter were met with celebration, community, and hope. This midwinter festival, deeply rooted in Norse tradition, was not just a time to endure the cold but to embrace the promise of the sun's return. For the Vikings, Yule was a sacred period that blended feasting, drinking, and rituals honoring the gods, creating a vibrant tapestry of tradition that would later influence modern Christmas celebrations. At the heart of Yule was the concept of rebirth and renewal. The winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, marked a turning point, a moment when the sun began its slow journey back to the sky. To the Vikings, this was a time of great significance, as it symbolized the triumph of light over darkness and the assurance that life would continue despite the harshness of winter. The Yule festival, which lasted for several days, was a way to honor this cosmic shift and to seek the blessings of the gods for the coming year. Feasting was central to the Yule celebrations. Families and communities would gather in great halls where long tables groaned under the weight of roasted meats, bread, and hearty stews. Mead, the honeyed drink of the gods, flowed freely, and toasts were raised in honor of Odin, Thor, and Freyr. These feasts were more than just meals. They were acts of unity and gratitude, bringing people together to share in the abundance of the harvest and the warmth of companionship. The act of eating and drinking together was seen as a way to strengthen bonds and ensure the community's survival through the winter. But Yule was not just about indulgence, it was also a time of ritual and reverence. One of the most important traditions was the Yule log, a massive piece of wood that was ceremonially lit and kept burning throughout the festival. The log symbolized the enduring light of the sun, and its flames were believed to ward off evil spirits and bring good fortune for the year ahead. As the log burned, families would gather around it to share stories, sing songs, and offer prayers to the gods. The ashes of the Yule log were often saved and used in protective rituals, further connecting the festival to themes of renewal and safeguarding. Another key aspect of Yule was the honoring of the gods and ancestors. Offerings of food, drink, and precious items were made at altars or sacred spaces, ensuring the favor of the divine and the protection of the family line. These rituals were deeply personal, reflecting the Vikings' belief in the interconnectedness of the living and the dead. By honoring their ancestors, they sought to maintain a link to the past while securing blessings for the future. The Yule festival also included games, competitions, and storytelling, adding a layer of joy and entertainment to the solemn rituals. These activities were not just for amusement, they were a way to celebrate life, strength, and skill, reinforcing the values of Viking society. The laughter and camaraderie of these moments served as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was light to be found in community and tradition. As we reflect on the Yule celebrations, it's fascinating to see how many of these ancient rituals have found their way into modern Christmas traditions. The Yule log, the feasting, the emphasis on light and renewal, all of these elements echo through the centuries, connecting us to the Vikings in ways we might not even realize. Their Yule festival was more than just a seasonal celebration. It was a testament to their resilience, their faith, and their ability to find hope in the darkest of times. With the echoes of Yule still lingering, our next journey takes us to a more somber yet equally profound ritual, the Viking funeral pyre, where the dead were honored and sent on their final journey to the afterlife. But for now, let the warmth of Yule remind us of the enduring power of light, community, and the promise of renewal. As we leave the warmth and light of the Yule festival behind, we now turn to a ritual that speaks to the Vikings' profound respect for the journey beyond life, the funeral pyre. For the Vikings, death was not an end but a passage to another realm, and the rituals surrounding it were as elaborate as they were meaningful. The funeral pyre, a towering blaze that consumed the body of the deceased, was more than a farewell. It was a sacred act designed to honor the dead and ensure their safe passage to the afterlife. Central to Viking funeral rites was the belief in Valhalla, the great hall of Odin, where fallen warriors were said to feast and prepare for the final battle of Ragnarok. For a warrior, reaching Valhalla was the ultimate honor, and the funeral pyre played a crucial role in securing this destiny. The pyre was often constructed with great care, using wood and other materials that symbolized the deceased's status and achievements. The body, dressed in fine garments and adorned with weapons and jewelry, was placed atop the pyre, surrounded by offerings meant to accompany them on their journey. The act of lighting the pyre was both solemn and celebratory. As the flames rose, they were believed to carry the spirit of the deceased to the afterlife, guided by the gods. The smoke and fire were seen as a bridge between the worlds of the living and the dead, a passage that required both reverence and precision. The rituals performed during the burning included prayers, chants, and the recitation of the deceased's deeds, ensuring that their legacy would be remembered and honored. But the funeral pyre was not the only way the Vikings honored their dead. Ship burials, another striking tradition, were reserved for individuals of high status, such as chieftains or renowned warriors. In these burials, the deceased was placed within a ship, often surrounded by grave goods that reflected their life and achievements. These goods could include weapons, tools, clothing, and even animals, all meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife. The ship itself, a symbol of the Viking seafaring prowess, was believed to carry the soul to its final destination, whether that be Valhalla or another realm. The preparation of the ship burial was a meticulous process. The ship was often dragged ashore and placed in a specially dug trench, with the body and grave goods carefully arranged inside. Once everything was in place, the ship was covered with earth, creating a mound that served as a lasting monument to the deceased. These burial mounds, scattered across the Viking world, stand as silent witnesses to the beliefs and traditions of a people who saw death not as an end, but as a continuation of the journey. The rituals surrounding the funeral pyre and ship burials reveal much about the Vikings' worldview. They believed in an afterlife that mirrored the struggles and triumphs of life, where honor and bravery were rewarded. The care taken in these rituals, from the selection of grave goods to the construction of the pyre or ship, reflects a deep respect for the dead and a desire to ensure their well-being in the next world. These practices also served to strengthen the bonds of the living community, as they came together to honor their loved ones and reaffirm their shared beliefs. As we reflect on these ancient rites, it's impossible not to be struck by their beauty and complexity. The funeral pyre and ship burials were not just acts of mourning, they were acts of hope, faith, and remembrance. They remind us that for the Vikings, death was a journey, and every ritual was a step toward ensuring that journey was completed with dignity and honor. With the echoes of the funeral pyre still lingering, our next exploration takes us into the heart of Viking warfare and the enigmatic rituals of the Berserkers, warriors who entered a trance-like state to channel the fury of the bear and wolf. But for now, let the solemnity of the funeral pyre remind us of the Vikings' profound connection to life, death, and the worlds beyond. Now, as we step away from the solemnity of Viking funeral rites, we enter the chaotic and awe-inspiring world of the Berserkers, warriors whose very name evokes fear and fascination. These elite fighters were not just soldiers, they were living embodiments of primal fury, channeling the spirits of wild beasts to unleash unparalleled destruction on the battlefield. The rituals surrounding the Berserkers were as intense as the warriors themselves, blending physical preparation, spiritual invocation, and psychological warfare into a single, terrifying force. At the heart of the Berserkers' power was their ability to enter a trance-like state, a condition known as Berserkergang. This altered state of consciousness transformed them into nearly unstoppable forces, impervious to pain and driven by an almost supernatural rage. To achieve this state, Berserkers relied on a combination of ritualistic practices, including the use of hallucinogenic substances. Some historians believe they consumed potent herbs or mushrooms, such as the infamous Amanita muscaria, to induce visions and heighten their senses. These substances, combined with rhythmic chants and drumming, helped them transcend the boundaries of ordinary human experience, tapping into the raw energy of the animal spirits they revered. The connection to animals was central to the Berserker identity. Before battle, these warriors would don the skins of bears or wolves, symbolizing their transformation into these powerful creatures. The bear, known for its strength and ferocity, and the wolf, revered for its cunning and pack mentality, were seen as ideal embodiments of the qualities a warrior needed in combat. By wearing these skins, the Berserkers believed they could channel the spirit of the animal, gaining its attributes and becoming something more than human. This ritualistic attire wasn't just symbolic, it was a psychological weapon designed to strike terror into the hearts of their enemies. Imagine facing a warrior who seemed to embody the untamed wild, roaring like a bear or howling like a wolf as they charged into battle. The psychological impact of the Berserkers cannot be overstated. Their reputation alone was enough to demoralize opposing forces. Stories of their feats spread far and wide, painting them as almost supernatural beings. They were said to bite their shields in frenzy, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, and their bodies seemingly immune to wounds. Whether these tales were exaggerated or not, they served a purpose: to create an aura of invincibility around the Berserkers, making them as much a weapon of fear as of physical combat. But the life of a Berserker was not without its costs. The rituals and substances that fueled their rage took a heavy toll on their bodies and minds. After the battle, many would collapse from exhaustion, their bodies battered and their spirits drained. Some historians suggest that the long-term effects of these practices led to physical and mental deterioration, a grim reminder of the price paid for such power. Yet, for the Vikings, the Berserkers were a necessary and revered part of their warrior culture, embodying the extremes of human potential and the blurred line between man and beast. As we reflect on the rituals of the Berserkers, we see a fascinating intersection of spirituality, psychology, and warfare. These warriors were not just fighters, they were living rituals, their very existence a testament to the Viking belief in the power of transformation and the sacred bond between humans and the natural world. Their legacy endures as a symbol of the raw, untamed energy that lies within us all, waiting to be unleashed. With the echoes of the Berserkers' howls still ringing in our ears, we now turn to a different kind of gathering, one not of chaos but of order. The Thing Assembly, where disputes were settled and laws were made, reveals another side of Viking society, one that balanced the ferocity of the Berserkers with the wisdom of governance. But for now, let the image of the Berserker remind us of the power of ritual to transform not just individuals but entire cultures. Now, shifting from the primal chaos of the Berserkers, we step into the structured world of the Thing Assembly, a cornerstone of Viking society that brought order to their communities. The Thing was more than just a meeting. It was a vital institution where laws were made, disputes were resolved, and the collective will of the people was expressed. This gathering was a testament to the Vikings' ability to balance their fierce warrior culture with a sophisticated system of governance. At the heart of the Thing was the concept of collective decision-making. Unlike the autocratic systems of many other cultures, the Thing was a democratic forum where free men, and sometimes women, could voice their opinions and influence the course of their community. These assemblies were held at regular intervals, often at sacred or neutral sites, such as open fields or near prominent landmarks like large stones or trees. The location itself was imbued with significance, symbolizing the connection between the law and the land. One of the most striking rituals of the Thing was the swearing of oaths on sacred rings. These rings, often made of iron or silver, were kept in temples or carried by chieftains and were considered sacred to the gods, particularly Thor. To swear an oath on such a ring was to bind oneself to the divine, making the oath unbreakable. Breaking an oath was not just a legal offense, it was a moral and spiritual betrayal, punishable by both the community and the gods. This ritual underscored the deep intertwining of law and religion in Viking society, where justice was seen as a divine mandate. Chieftains played a central role in the Thing, acting as mediators and enforcers of the law. They were not rulers in the traditional sense, but rather respected leaders whose authority was derived from their wisdom, wealth, and ability to maintain order. During the assembly, chieftains would preside over disputes, ensuring that each party had a fair hearing. Their decisions were guided by a combination of customary law, precedent, and the collective will of the assembly. This system of governance, while not perfect, provided a remarkable degree of stability and fairness in a society often characterized by its martial prowess. The Thing was also a place for social cohesion. Beyond its legal and political functions, the assembly served as a gathering where news was shared, alliances were forged, and communal bonds were strengthened. Feasts and celebrations often accompanied these meetings, turning them into vibrant social events that reinforced the unity of the community. In this way, the Thing was not just a legal institution but a cultural one, reflecting the Vikings' emphasis on community and mutual responsibility. The importance of the Thing in maintaining order cannot be overstated. In a world where personal honor and vengeance often dictated actions, the Thing provided a structured alternative to violence. It allowed disputes to be settled peacefully, laws to be upheld, and justice to be administered in a way that was seen as fair and legitimate. This balance between individual freedom and collective responsibility was a hallmark of Viking society, one that allowed them to thrive in both war and peace. As we leave the orderly world of the thing, we turn to a more personal and intimate ritual, the naming of Viking children. This ceremony, steeped in tradition and meaning, reveals yet another layer of the Viking worldview, where names were not just labels but powerful symbols of identity and destiny. But for now, let the thing remind us of the enduring power of community and the importance of finding balance, even in a world as tumultuous as that of the Vikings. Now, as we move from the communal gatherings of the thing to the deeply personal rituals of Viking life, we find ourselves at the heart of family and identity, the naming ceremony. For the Vikings, a name was far more than a simple label. It was a powerful symbol of heritage, destiny, and connection to the past. The naming of a child was a sacred act steeped in tradition and meaning, designed to ensure the child's protection, prosperity, and place within the family lineage. The process of choosing a name was not taken lightly. Viking names often carried significant weight, reflecting the qualities or aspirations parents hoped their child would embody. Many names were derived from the natural world, such as Bjorn, meaning bear, symbolizing strength, or Ulf, meaning wolf, representing cunning and ferocity. Others honored the gods, like Thorstein, meaning Thor's stone, or Freydis, meaning Lady of Freyr, connecting the child to divine protection and favor. Names could also commemorate ancestors, ensuring that the memory and legacy of past generations lived on. For example, a child might be named after a grandparent, not only to honor the ancestor but also to invoke their wisdom and guidance in the child's life. The naming ceremony itself was a momentous occasion, often held shortly after the child's birth. Family and community members would gather to witness the event, which was as much a spiritual ritual as it was a social one. The child would be presented to the gods with offerings made to ensure their favor and protection. These offerings could include food, drink, or small tokens of value, symbolizing the family's gratitude and hope for the child's future. In some cases, the child might be sprinkled with water or passed through smoke from a sacred fire, acts believed to purify and bless the newborn. Central to the ceremony was the act of naming itself. The chosen name would be spoken aloud, often by the father or a respected elder, in a formal declaration that bound the child to their identity and destiny. This moment was seen as a sacred contract, not just between the child and their family, but also between the child and the gods. The name was believed to carry a kind of magical power, shaping the child's character and fate. For this reason, names were chosen with great care, often after consulting runes, dreams, or omens for guidance. The significance of names extended beyond the individual. In Viking society, names were a way of weaving the past and present together, creating a sense of continuity and belonging. By naming a child after an ancestor, families reinforced their connection to their lineage, ensuring that the deeds and virtues of the past were not forgotten. This practice also served to strengthen familial bonds, as the child was seen as a living link to those who had come before. Examples of common Viking names and their meanings offer a glimpse into the values and aspirations of this culture. Names like Eric, meaning eternal ruler, or Sigrid, meaning beautiful victory, reflect the Vikings' admiration for leadership and triumph. Others, like Astrid, meaning divine strength, or Ingrid, meaning beautiful Ing, highlight the importance of both physical and spiritual qualities. Each name tells a story, revealing the hopes and dreams of the parents who chose it. As we reflect on the naming ceremony, we see how deeply the Vikings valued identity, heritage, and the bonds that tied them to their ancestors and gods. This ritual was not just about giving a child a name, it was about giving them a place in the world, a connection to the past, and a path to the future. And as we turn our attention to the next ritual, we'll explore how the Vikings honored the spirits of the land, ensuring harmony and prosperity for their communities. Now, as we shift our focus from the deeply personal rituals of naming ceremonies to the broader connection between the Vikings and the natural world, we come to the practice of honoring the landvitir or land spirits. For the Vikings, the land was not just a resource to be used, it was a living, breathing entity inhabited by spirits who could influence the fertility of the soil, the success of crops, and the safety of the community. To ensure harmony with these spirits, the Vikings performed rituals of offering, seeking their favor and protection. The landvitir were believed to reside in specific natural features such as groves, springs, rocks, or even entire landscapes. These places were considered sacred, and approaching them required respect and reverence. Offerings were made at these sites to maintain a positive relationship with the spirits, ensuring that the land remained fertile and the community prospered. The rituals were often simple but deeply meaningful, reflecting the Vikings' understanding of their dependence on the natural world. One of the most common types of offerings was food. Bread, grains, fruits, and even meat might be left at sacred sites as a gesture of gratitude and respect. These offerings were not just symbolic, they were practical, acknowledging the landvitir's role in providing sustenance. In some cases, drink offerings such as mead or ale were also poured onto the ground or into springs, symbolizing a shared bond between the people and the spirits. Precious items were another form of offering. Small tokens of value such as jewelry, coins, or finely crafted objects might be buried or placed at sacred sites. These offerings were seen as a way to honor the landvitir and demonstrate the community's commitment to maintaining a harmonious relationship. The act of giving something valuable was believed to strengthen the bond between humans and spirits, ensuring their continued protection and goodwill. The rituals themselves were often performed by individuals or small groups, though larger ceremonies might involve the entire community. At certain times of the year, such as the beginning of the planting season or after a successful harvest, special offerings would be made to thank the landvitir for their blessings. These ceremonies might include prayers, chants, or songs, creating a sense of unity and shared purpose among the participants. One particularly fascinating aspect of these rituals was the belief in reciprocity. The Vikings saw their offerings not as one-sided transactions but as part of an ongoing exchange. By giving to the landvitir, they believed they were fostering a relationship based on mutual respect and care. In return, the spirits would ensure the fertility of the land, protect the community from harm, and even guide individuals in their daily lives. The sacred sites where these rituals took place were often marked by natural features such as ancient trees, bubbling springs, or striking rock formations. These places were treated with great care, and disturbing them was considered highly disrespectful. Over time, some of these sites became well-known gathering places where generations of Vikings would return to perform their rituals and honor the landvitir. As we explore these practices, we gain a deeper understanding of the Vikings' relationship with the natural world. Their rituals were not just about survival, they were about connection, respect, and gratitude. By honoring the landvitir, the Vikings acknowledged their place within a larger web of life, one that required balance and harmony to thrive. And as we turn to the next ritual, we'll delve into the vibrant celebrations of Midsummer, a time when the Vikings honored the sun and the magic of the longest day of the year. Now, as we move from the quiet reverence of landvitir offerings to the vibrant energy of Midsummer, we find ourselves stepping into a world of light, warmth, and celebration. The Midsummer festival, known as Blót in Old Norse, was one of the most joyous and magical times of the year for the Vikings. Marking the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, this festival was a time to honor the sun, celebrate life, and prepare for the challenges of the coming months. At the heart of Midsummer celebrations were the bonfires, towering flames that lit up the night sky. These fires were more than just a source of light, they were symbols of the sun's power and a way to harness its energy. The Vikings believed that the bonfires had protective qualities, warding off evil spirits and ensuring the fertility of the land. Lighting these fires was a communal act, bringing people together in a shared expression of hope and gratitude. The bonfires were often built on high ground where their light could be seen for miles. As the flames roared, the community would gather around, singing, dancing, and feasting. The fire itself was seen as a living entity, a bridge between the human world and the divine. Jumping over the flames was a common ritual, believed to bring good luck and purify the soul. It was also thought to ensure a bountiful harvest, as the fire's energy was believed to transfer to the crops. The solstice itself held deep significance for the Vikings. As the sun reached its highest point in the sky, it was seen as a time of balance, a moment when the forces of light and darkness were in perfect harmony. This balance was celebrated through rituals that honored both the sun and the earth. Offerings of flowers, herbs, and grains were made to the gods, particularly Freyr, the god of fertility and prosperity. These offerings were often placed in the bonfires, their smoke carrying prayers and blessings to the heavens. Midsummer was also a time of magic and divination. The Vikings believed that the veil between worlds was thinner during the solstice, making it an ideal time for rituals of prophecy and protection. Women would often weave garlands of flowers and herbs, which they wore or placed around their homes to ward off evil spirits. Runes and charms were used to predict the future, and special herbs such as mugwort and St. John's wort were gathered for their protective and healing properties. The festival was not just about the present, it was also a time to look to the future. The rituals performed during Midsummer were meant to ensure a good harvest, protect the community from harm, and bring prosperity in the months to come. The bonfires, the offerings, and the celebrations were all part of a larger effort to maintain harmony with the natural world and the divine forces that governed it. As we reflect on the Midsummer bonfires, we see a celebration of life, light, and connection. The Vikings understood the importance of marking the turning points of the year, not just as practical milestones, but as moments of spiritual significance. And as we turn to the next ritual, we'll explore the darker side of Viking beliefs, the rituals performed to protect against the undead, the Draugr, and the fearsome spirits that haunted their world. Now, as we shift from the light-filled celebrations of Midsummer to a much darker and more chilling aspect of Viking culture, we encounter one of the most infamous and debated rituals in Norse history, the Blood Eagle. This gruesome form of execution has captured the imagination of historians and storytellers alike, but its true nature remains shrouded in mystery and controversy. The Blood Eagle, or Blót in Old Norse, was said to be a ritualistic method of killing reserved for the most heinous of crimes, particularly treason. According to the sagas, the victim would be placed face down, their back cut open, and their ribs severed from the spine. The lungs were then pulled out and spread like wings, creating a horrifying spectacle meant to resemble an eagle. The symbolism of the eagle, a creature associated with Odin, the god of war and death, added a layer of divine retribution to the act. However, the historical accuracy of the Blood Eagle is hotly debated. Some scholars argue that the descriptions in the sagas are exaggerated or symbolic, while others believe it may have been a real practice, albeit rare. The sagas themselves were written centuries after the Viking Age, and their accounts often blend history with myth, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. What is clear, though, is that the Blood Eagle served as a powerful narrative device, emphasizing the brutal consequences of betrayal and the unforgiving nature of Viking justice. The ritual's portrayal in the sagas often highlights its role as a punishment for traitors. In the Saga of the Sons of Ragnar, for example, the legendary Viking Ivar the Boneless is said to have performed the Blood Eagle on King Aelle of Northumbria as revenge for the death of his father, Ragnar Lothbrok. This story, whether historically accurate or not, underscores the Blood Eagle's symbolic weight as an act of vengeance and a warning to others. Beyond its physical brutality, the Blood Eagle carried deep symbolic meaning. The act of transforming a human body into the shape of an eagle was not just about inflicting pain, it was a ritualistic offering to Odin, a way to honor the god and seek his favor. The eagle, as a symbol of power and ferocity, represented the ultimate sacrifice, a life given in the most dramatic and horrifying way possible. For the Vikings, who valued honor and loyalty above all else, the blood eagle was a stark reminder of the consequences of breaking these sacred bonds. As we reflect on the blood eagle, we are reminded of the darker aspects of Viking culture, where justice was often swift, brutal, and deeply symbolic. While the true extent of this ritual's use may never be known, its legacy endures as a testament to the Vikings' complex relationship with violence, honor, and the divine. And as we move forward, we'll explore another fascinating ritual, one that involves sacred objects and the swearing of oaths, a practice that held immense importance in Viking society. Now, as we turn from the grim spectacle of the blood eagle to a more solemn and unifying aspect of Viking culture, we encounter the sacred oath rings. These rings, often made of iron or silver, were not mere ornaments but powerful symbols of trust, loyalty, and divine authority. In a society where honor and word were paramount, the oath ring stood as a tangible representation of one's unbreakable promise. The oath ring, or Borga in Old Norse, was closely tied to Thor, the god of thunder and protector of mankind. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, was often invoked during oath-swearing ceremonies, as the god himself was seen as a guardian of oaths and a punisher of those who broke them. The rings were typically kept in temples or sacred spaces, and their use was reserved for significant occasions, such as forming alliances, settling disputes, or pledging loyalty to a chieftain. To swear an oath on the ring was to bind oneself not only to the words spoken but also to the gods themselves. The ceremonies surrounding oath rings were deeply ritualistic. Participants would gather in a sacred space, often a temple or a hallowed outdoor site, where the ring was placed on an altar or held by a chieftain or priest. The person swearing the oath would place their hand on the ring and recite their pledge, sometimes invoking Thor's name or calling upon the gods to witness their words. This act was believed to imbue the oath with divine power, making its violation not just a betrayal of trust but a sacrilege punishable by the gods. The symbolism of the oath ring extended beyond its physical form. Its circular shape represented eternity and the unbroken nature of the promise being made. To break an oath sworn on the ring was to shatter this sacred bond, inviting not only social ostracism but also divine retribution. In a world where alliances were fragile and trust was hard-earned, the oath ring served as a vital tool for maintaining order and cohesion within Viking society. Interestingly, oath rings were not limited to political or legal agreements. They were also used in personal matters, such as marriages or friendships, where the stakes of loyalty were equally high. In these contexts, the ring symbolized a bond that transcended mere words, uniting individuals in a shared commitment to honor and mutual respect. As we reflect on the significance of oath rings, we see how they embodied the Vikings' deep reverence for trust and their belief in the divine oversight of human affairs. These sacred objects remind us that for the Vikings, a promise was not just a social contract but a spiritual covenant, one that carried the weight of both earthly and heavenly consequences. And as we move forward, we'll explore another fascinating ritual, one that involves the veneration of ancestral spirits and the rituals performed to ensure their continued protection and favor. Shifting our focus from the sacred bonds of oath rings, we now delve into the intimate and protective world of the Disir, the revered female ancestral spirits of Viking culture. These spirits, often seen as guardians of family lineage, played a crucial role in ensuring the prosperity, safety, and continuity of Viking households. The Disir were not just distant figures of myth, but were deeply woven into the daily lives and spiritual practices of the Norse people. The Disir were believed to be the spirits of deceased female ancestors, watching over their living descendants with a maternal care. They were honored as protectors, guiding their families through challenges and blessing them with fertility, health, and good fortune. To neglect the Disir was to risk their displeasure, which could bring misfortune or even disaster upon the household. Thus, rituals to honor these spirits were not merely ceremonial but essential acts of devotion. One of the most significant ways the Vikings honored the Disir was through offerings. These offerings, known as Blót, often included food, drink, and precious items. Families would gather at sacred sites such as burial mounds or ancestral groves to present these gifts. The rituals were typically led by the head of the household or a designated priestess, who would invoke the Disir and invite their presence. The offerings were placed on altars or scattered at the base of trees, symbolizing the connection between the living and the ancestral spirits. Feasting also played a central role in Disir worship. Families would prepare elaborate meals, often featuring bread, meat, and mead, which were shared among the living and symbolically offered to the Disir. These feasts were not only acts of gratitude but also opportunities to strengthen familial bonds and reaffirm the community's connection to its ancestors. The act of sharing food with the spirits was believed to ensure their continued favor and protection. The timing of these rituals was often tied to significant moments in the agricultural calendar, such as the harvest or the onset of winter. The Disir were particularly honored during the Winter Nights festival, a time when the veil between the living and the dead was thought to be at its thinnest. During this festival, families would light candles, recite prayers, and hold vigils to honor their ancestors and seek their guidance for the coming year. The role of the Disir extended beyond mere protection. They were also seen as mediators between the living and the divine, capable of influencing the gods on behalf of their descendants. This belief underscores the Vikings' deep respect for their ancestors and their understanding of the interconnectedness of past, present, and future. As we reflect on the rituals of Disir worship, we see how these practices reveal the Vikings' profound connection to their ancestors and their belief in the enduring power of familial bonds. The Disir were not just spirits of the past but active participants in the lives of their descendants, embodying the values of loyalty, protection, and continuity that were central to Viking society. And as we continue our journey, we'll explore another fascinating aspect of Viking spirituality, one that involves the sacred bond between humans and the land they inhabited. Turning now to the powerful and symbolic rituals involving horses, we uncover a practice that held deep spiritual significance for the Vikings. The horse, revered as a sacred animal, was not only a vital part of daily life but also a key figure in their religious ceremonies. Among the most striking of these rituals was the horse sacrifice, a solemn act performed to honor the gods, mark important events, or seek divine favor. In Viking culture, the horse was more than just a means of transportation or a tool for labor. It was a symbol of strength, freedom, and connection to the divine. Horses were often associated with gods like Odin and Freyr, who were believed to ride majestic steeds across the heavens. This connection elevated the horse to a sacred status, making its sacrifice a profound act of devotion. The rituals surrounding horse sacrifices were elaborate and deeply meaningful. These ceremonies were typically conducted during significant occasions, such as the ascension of a new leader, the dedication of a temple, or the celebration of a major victory. The chosen horse, often a prized stallion, was seen as a worthy offering to the gods, embodying the qualities of power and vitality that the Vikings sought to honor. The sacrifice itself was carried out with great care and reverence. The horse would be led to a sacred site, often near a temple or burial mound, where it would be ritually slaughtered. The blood, considered a potent life force, was collected and used in various ways, sometimes sprinkled on altars, participants, or sacred objects to consecrate them. The meat of the horse was then prepared for a communal feast, symbolizing the sharing of divine blessings among the community. These feasts were more than just meals, they were acts of unity and gratitude. By partaking in the sacrificial feast, the Vikings believed they were strengthening their bond with the gods and ensuring their continued favor. The act of sharing the horse's flesh was also seen as a way to absorb its strength and vitality, imbuing the participants with the animal's sacred qualities. The symbolism of the horse extended beyond the physical act of sacrifice. In Norse mythology, horses were often depicted as guides to the afterlife, carrying the souls of the deceased to their final resting place. This belief added another layer of meaning to the ritual, as the sacrificed horse was seen as a messenger between the mortal world and the divine realm. As we explore the rituals of horse sacrifice, we gain insight into the Vikings' deep respect for the natural world and their belief in the interconnectedness of all life. The horse, as both a practical companion and a spiritual symbol, embodied the values of strength, loyalty, and divine connection that were central to Viking culture. And as we move forward, we'll uncover yet another fascinating aspect of their spiritual practices, one that reveals their intricate relationship with the land and its unseen guardians. Now, let us step into the shadowy realm of the Draugr, the restless undead of Norse mythology, and uncover the rituals the Vikings performed to protect themselves from these fearsome beings. The Draugr were not mere ghosts, they were powerful, malevolent spirits of the dead, often depicted as reanimated corpses with superhuman strength and a thirst for vengeance. To the Vikings, the Draugr posed a real and terrifying threat capable of wreaking havoc on the living. As a result, they developed elaborate rituals to ensure the dead remained at peace and to guard against their return. The first line of defense against the Draugr began with the burial itself. The Vikings believed that proper burial practices were essential to prevent the dead from rising. Bodies were often buried with grave goods, tools, weapons, and personal items to ensure the deceased had everything they needed in the afterlife. However, these offerings also served a dual purpose. They were meant to appease the dead, reducing the likelihood of them returning to the world of the living. In some cases, the dead were buried in a seated or crouched position, a practice thought to make it harder for them to rise and walk, but the Vikings didn't stop there. They also employed a variety of spells and charms to ward off Draugr. One common method was to place heavy stones or boulders on top of the grave, a physical barrier meant to trap the dead beneath the earth. These stones were often inscribed with protective runes, symbols believed to hold magical power. The runes acted as a kind of spiritual lock, binding the dead to their resting place and preventing them from breaking free. Another ritual involved the use of iron, a material thought to repel evil spirits. Iron nails or rods were sometimes driven into the grave, forming a protective barrier around the body. In some cases, the dead were buried with their feet tied together or their shoes removed, a symbolic act meant to hinder their ability to walk or return to the world of the living. These practices reflect the Vikings' deep understanding of symbolism and their belief in the power of ritual to influence the spiritual realm. The fear of Draugr also extended to the living. If a person was suspected of becoming a Draugr after death, their body might be exhumed and subjected to further rituals. This could include decapitation, burning, or even staking the body to the ground, drastic measures meant to ensure the dead could not rise again. These acts were not taken lightly, as they were seen as necessary to protect the community from harm. The rituals surrounding the Draugr reveal much about the Vikings' relationship with death and the afterlife. They believed that the boundary between life and death was fragile, and that the dead could easily cross back into the world of the living if not properly contained. These practices were not just about fear, they were about maintaining balance and order in a world where the supernatural was always close at hand. As we leave the chilling world of the Draugr behind, we turn our attention to another sacred practice, one that connects the Vikings to the very land they called home. The rituals of the Hurga altars, outdoor stone structures used for offerings and ceremonies, offer a glimpse into how the Vikings honored the spirits of the earth and sought their favor. Moving from the eerie rituals of the Draugr, we now step into the sacred spaces where the Vikings sought to connect with the divine. The Hurga altars, simple yet profound outdoor stone structures, were central to many Viking rituals. These altars were not grand temples or elaborate shrines, but rather humble arrangements of stones, often placed in natural settings like groves, hillsides, or near bodies of water. Their simplicity, however, belied their importance. The Hurga served as a bridge between the mortal world and the spiritual realm, a place where offerings could be made to the gods and the spirits of the land. The construction of a Hurga was deliberate and symbolic. Typically, it consisted of a flat stone slab or a pile of stones arranged in a specific pattern. These altars were often built in locations believed to be imbued with spiritual energy, such as near ancient trees, springs, or other natural landmarks. The choice of location was crucial, as it reflected the Vikings' deep reverence for the natural world and their belief that the divine could be found in the land itself. The stones used in the Hurga were often unworked, left in their natural state to honor the raw power of the earth. Offerings made at the Hurga varied depending on the purpose of the ritual. Common offerings included food, drink, and precious items like jewelry or weapons. These gifts were meant to appease the gods and spirits, ensuring their favor and protection. For example, during times of hardship, a farmer might offer a portion of his harvest to the land spirits, hoping for a bountiful season ahead. Similarly, a warrior might dedicate a weapon to Thor, seeking strength and victory in battle. The act of offering was not just a transaction but a deeply spiritual practice, a way for the Vikings to express gratitude, seek guidance, or ask for blessings. The Hurga was also closely tied to the worship of specific deities and spirits. While some altars were dedicated to major gods like Odin or Thor, others honored local land spirits known as Landvitir. These spirits were believed to inhabit the natural world, and offerings at the Hurga were a way to maintain harmony with them. The Vikings saw themselves as part of a larger, interconnected web of life, and the Hurga rituals were a means of acknowledging and respecting that connection. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Hurga is its role in communal rituals. Unlike some Viking practices that were performed privately, ceremonies at the Hurga often involved the entire community. These gatherings were times of celebration, reflection, and unity, as people came together to honor the gods and spirits that shaped their lives. The rituals performed at the Hurga reinforced social bonds and reminded the community of their shared values and beliefs. As we reflect on the Hurga altars, we see a practice that embodies the Vikings' relationship with the divine and the natural world. These simple stone structures were more than just places of worship. They were symbols of a world view that saw the sacred in the everyday, the divine in the land itself. With this understanding, we now turn to another intriguing aspect of Viking spirituality, the belief in Fylgja, protective spirits that followed individuals and families, and the rituals performed to honor them. Now, as we step into the realm of the unseen, we encounter the Fylgja, a concept that reveals the Vikings' deep connection to the spiritual world. The Fylgja, often described as a protective spirit or guardian, was believed to accompany individuals or families throughout their lives. These spirits were not just passive observers but active participants in the lives of those they watched over, offering guidance, protection, and even warnings of impending danger. The Fylgja could take many forms, often appearing in dreams or visions as an animal, such as a bear, wolf, or bird, symbolizing the traits and destiny of the person they followed. The rituals surrounding the Fylgja were deeply personal and often tied to significant moments in a person's life. One of the most common practices was the offering of food or drink to honor the Fylgja. These offerings were made in quiet, private moments, often at home or in secluded natural spaces. The act of giving was not just a gesture of gratitude but a way to strengthen the bond between the individual and their protective spirit. For example, a warrior might leave a portion of his meal for his Fylgja before a battle, seeking its favor and protection in the fight ahead. Another important aspect of Fylgja rituals was the use of dreams and visions to communicate with these spirits. The Vikings believed that the Fylgja could reveal important messages or warnings through dreams, and interpreting these visions was a crucial part of maintaining a harmonious relationship with the spirit. If a person dreamed of their Fylgja in distress or appearing in an unusual form, it was seen as a sign that something needed to be addressed in their life. Rituals might then be performed to appease the Fylgja, such as making additional offerings or seeking the guidance of a völva, a seer skilled in interpreting spiritual signs. The Fylgja was also closely tied to the concept of fate and destiny. In Viking belief, the Fylgja was not just a protector but a reflection of a person's inner nature and their path in life. For instance, a person with a wolf Fylgja might be seen as fierce and independent, while someone with a bear Fylgja could be viewed as strong and nurturing. This connection between the Fylgja and personal identity made the rituals honoring these spirits deeply meaningful, as they were a way for individuals to acknowledge and embrace their true selves. Communal rituals also played a role in honoring the Fylgja, particularly within families. It was believed that the Fylgja could be passed down through generations, linking ancestors to their descendants. Family gatherings might include ceremonies to honor the collective Fylgja, ensuring the continued protection and prosperity of the lineage. These rituals often involved storytelling, where tales of ancestors and their Fylgja were shared, reinforcing the family's connection to their spiritual guardians. As we explore the Fylgja rituals, we see a practice that highlights the Vikings' belief in the interconnectedness of the physical and spiritual worlds. These protective spirits were more than just mythical beings. They were a vital part of daily life, offering comfort, guidance, and a sense of purpose. With this understanding, we now turn to another fascinating aspect of Viking spirituality: the rituals performed by völvas, the seers who bridge the gap between the mortal world and the divine. Now, as we journey deeper into the mystical practices of the Viking world, we encounter the völvas, the enigmatic seers who held the power to glimpse into the future. These women were revered as bridges between the mortal realm and the divine, their prophecies shaping decisions, battles, and even the fates of entire communities. The rituals they performed were as intricate as they were awe-inspiring, blending magic, spirituality, and a deep understanding of the natural world. At the heart of a völva's practice was her staff, a symbol of her authority and connection to the spiritual realm. These staffs were often intricately carved, adorned with runes and symbols that amplified their power. During ceremonies, the völva would use her staff to channel energy, drawing upon the forces of the unseen to guide her visions. The staff was not just a tool but an extension of her being, a conduit through which she communicated with the gods and spirits. Another essential element of the völva's rituals was the use of runes. These ancient symbols carved into wood, bone, or stone were more than just letters. They were keys to unlocking hidden knowledge. The völva would cast the runes onto a cloth or the ground, interpreting their patterns and positions to reveal messages from the divine. Each rune carried its own meaning, and the way they fell in relation to one another could tell a story of past, present, or future. This practice required not only skill but also a deep intuition, as the völva had to decipher the subtle nuances of the rune's messages. The ceremonies themselves were often held in sacred spaces, such as groves or secluded areas where the veil between worlds was believed to be thinnest. These gatherings were marked by an air of solemnity and reverence, as the völva prepared herself through chants, incantations, and sometimes the use of hallucinogenic herbs to enter a trance-like state. In this altered state of consciousness, she could travel beyond the physical world, receiving visions and prophecies that she would later interpret for those seeking guidance. One of the most fascinating aspects of the völva's role was her ability to predict not just individual fates but also larger events, such as the outcomes of battles or the success of harvests. Her prophecies were highly sought after, and her words carried immense weight in Viking society. Leaders and warriors would consult her before making crucial decisions, trusting her insights to guide their actions. Yet the völva's power was not without its risks. To misinterpret a vision or misuse her abilities could bring misfortune, and the responsibility she carried was immense. The völva's rituals also had a communal aspect, as her prophecies often served to unite or warn entire communities. During festivals or times of crisis, she might perform public ceremonies, her words echoing through the gathered crowd as she revealed the will of the gods. These moments were not just about prediction, but also about fostering a sense of shared destiny and purpose among the people. As we reflect on the völva's prophecies, we see a practice that underscores the Vikings' belief in the interconnectedness of all things. The völva was more than a seer, she was a guide, a mediator, and a keeper of wisdom. Her rituals remind us of the profound respect the Vikings held for the mysteries of the universe and their desire to navigate life with the guidance of the divine. With this understanding, we now turn to another captivating ritual, the Blót, a private ceremony honoring the elves and their influence on fertility and the harvest. Now, as we step into the quieter, more intimate corners of Viking spirituality, we encounter the Blót, a ritual steeped in mystery and reverence for the unseen. Unlike the grand public ceremonies we've explored, the Blót was a deeply personal affair, conducted within the confines of the home. This ritual was dedicated to the elves, or Alfa, beings who were believed to inhabit the land and wield influence over fertility, prosperity, and the cycles of nature. For the Vikings, maintaining a harmonious relationship with these spirits was essential, as their favor could mean the difference between a bountiful harvest and a barren one. The Blót was typically performed during the autumn months, a time when the harvest was gathered and the community prepared for the long winter ahead. It was a moment to give thanks for the year's blessings and to seek the elves' continued protection and goodwill. The ritual was led by the head of the household, often with the participation of the entire family, emphasizing its role as a private, familial act of devotion. At the heart of the Blót were the offerings made to the elves. These offerings varied but often included food, drink, and sometimes small tokens of value. Bread, milk, and ale were common, symbolizing the fruits of the land and the labor of the people. These items were carefully placed at designated spots, such as near stones, trees, or other natural features believed to be inhabited by the elves. The act of offering was not just a gesture of gratitude, but also a way to strengthen the bond between the human and spirit worlds. The rituals themselves were marked by a sense of solemnity and respect. The family would gather in a quiet, sacred space, often near the hearth or a designated altar, to perform chants or prayers. These invocations were meant to honor the elves and invite their presence, ensuring their continued favor. The atmosphere was one of reverence, as the family sought to align themselves with the natural forces that governed their lives. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Blót was its connection to fertility. The elves were seen as guardians of the land, their presence ensuring the fertility of the soil and the health of livestock. By honoring them, the Vikings believed they could secure a prosperous future, not just for themselves but for generations to come. This belief underscores the deep respect the Vikings had for the natural world and their understanding of their place within it. The Blót also highlights the Vikings' belief in the interconnectedness of all life. The elves were not distant, abstract beings but active participants in the daily lives of the people. Their favor was sought not just for material gain but for the overall harmony and balance of the community. This ritual reminds us that, for the Vikings, spirituality was not confined to grand temples or public ceremonies, but was woven into the fabric of everyday life. As we reflect on the Blót, we see a ritual that speaks to the intimate, personal side of Viking spirituality. It was a moment to pause, to give thanks, and to seek the blessings of the unseen forces that shaped their world. With this understanding, we now turn to another fascinating ritual, the ship-launching ceremony, a grand event that celebrated the Vikings' mastery of the seas and their connection to the divine. Shifting our focus from the quiet intimacy of the Alpha Blót, we now set sail into the grandeur of the Viking ship-launching ceremony. For the Vikings, ships were far more than mere vessels. They were symbols of power, exploration, and even spiritual passage. The launching of a ship was not just a practical event but a sacred ritual, steeped in symbolism and designed to secure the favor of the gods for safe voyages and prosperous journeys. The ceremony began with the careful selection of the ship itself. Viking ships, whether longships for raiding or gnars for trading, were masterpieces of craftsmanship, built with precision and imbued with spiritual significance. The process of constructing a ship was seen as a collaborative effort between humans and the divine, with each plank and nail carrying the hopes and prayers of the community. Once completed, the ship was more than a tool. It was a living entity, a bridge between the mortal world and the realms of the gods. On the day of the launch, the community would gather to witness the event, which was as much a celebration as it was a ritual. The ceremony often began with offerings to the gods, particularly Njord, the god of the sea, and Thor, the protector of sailors. These offerings could include animals such as goats or horses, as well as precious items like jewelry or weapons. The sacrifices were meant to appease the gods and ensure their protection during the perilous journeys ahead. One of the most striking aspects of the ceremony was the blessing of the ship. A chieftain or a designated spiritual leader would perform this ritual, often using a ceremonial hammer or a sacred object to invoke the god's favor. The ship would be anointed with blood from the sacrifices, symbolizing its connection to the divine and its readiness to carry the crew through both the physical and spiritual challenges of the sea. Chants and prayers would fill the air, calling upon the gods to guide the ship safely through storms and waves. The act of launching the ship itself was a moment of great significance. As the vessel slid into the water, it was believed to be reborn, transitioning from a static object on land to a dynamic force on the sea. This moment symbolized not only the beginning of a physical journey but also a spiritual one, as the ship carried the hopes, dreams, and destinies of those aboard. The Vikings saw the sea as a liminal space, a place where the boundaries between worlds blurred, and the ship was their means of navigating this mysterious realm. The symbolism of the ship extended beyond life into the afterlife. In Viking belief, ships were often used in burial rites, with the deceased placed aboard a vessel or buried in a ship-shaped grave. This practice reflected the idea that the ship could carry the soul to the afterlife, whether to Valhalla, the hall of the slain, or to the realm of hell. The ship, therefore, was not just a tool for exploration but a vessel for spiritual passage, connecting the living and the dead. As we reflect on the ship-launching ceremony, we see a ritual that encapsulates the Vikings' mastery of the seas and their deep spiritual connection to the world around them. It was a moment of unity where the practical and the sacred intertwined, and where the community came together to honor the gods, the sea, and the journey ahead. With this in mind, we now turn to another fascinating ritual: the use of Thor's Hammer amulets, a powerful symbol of protection and divine favor in Viking culture. Moving from the grandeur of ship launches to the personal and portable, we now explore the power of Thor's Hammer amulets. These small yet mighty symbols were more than just jewelry. They were sacred objects believed to carry the divine protection of Thor, the god of thunder and one of the most revered figures in Norse mythology. For the Vikings, these amulets were a tangible connection to the gods, offering safety and strength in a world filled with both physical and spiritual dangers. The significance of Thor's hammer, known as Mjolnir, cannot be overstated. In Norse mythology, Mjolnir was not only a weapon capable of leveling mountains but also a tool of blessing and protection. The hammer symbolized Thor's role as a defender of both gods and humans, a guardian against the forces of chaos and evil. Wearing a Thor's Hammer amulet was a way for individuals to invoke this divine power, carrying a piece of Thor's strength with them wherever they went. The creation of these amulets was itself a ritualistic process. Crafted by skilled artisans, the hammers were often made from iron, bronze, or silver, materials believed to hold spiritual significance. The process of forging the amulet was accompanied by prayers and invocations, calling upon Thor to imbue the object with his protective energy. Once completed, the amulet was not just a piece of metal but a sacred artifact charged with the power of the gods. Before being worn, the amulets were often blessed in a ceremony. This ritual typically involved a chieftain, a völva, or another spiritual leader who would invoke Thor's presence. Offerings such as mead or small sacrifices might be made to honor the god and ensure his favor. The amulet would then be anointed with sacred substances, such as water from a holy spring or blood from a sacrificial animal, symbolizing its consecration and readiness to serve as a protective talisman. The role of Thor's hammer amulets extended beyond personal protection. They were also used in communal rituals, particularly during times of crisis or uncertainty. For example, before a battle, warriors might gather to have their amulets blessed collectively, reinforcing their unity and shared faith in Thor's protection. Similarly, during festivals or important gatherings, the amulets could be displayed or used in ceremonies to invoke the god's presence and ensure the community's safety. In everyday life, these amulets served as a constant reminder of Thor's watchful presence. They were worn around the neck or attached to clothing, often visible as a declaration of faith and a shield against malevolent forces. The Vikings believed that evil spirits and hostile magic could be repelled by the power of Mjolnir, making the amulet an essential part of their spiritual armor. The enduring legacy of Thor's hammer amulets speaks to their profound significance in Viking culture. They were not merely decorative but deeply symbolic, embodying the ideals of strength, protection, and divine connection. As we reflect on these powerful talismans, we gain insight into how the Vikings sought to navigate a world where the spiritual and the physical were deeply intertwined. With this understanding, we now turn to the Winter Nights Festival, a time of reflection, celebration, and honoring the ancestors. As we leave behind the protective embrace of Thor's hammer amulets, we step into the warmth and reflection of the Winter Nights Festival, a pivotal moment in the Viking calendar. This festival, known as Veturnitur in Old Norse, marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time when the Vikings turned their attention to honoring their ancestors and preparing for the long, dark months ahead. The Winter Nights Festival was more than just a celebration. It was a deeply spiritual event that connected the living with the dead. The Vikings believed that during this time, the veil between the worlds of the living and the ancestors grew thin, allowing for communication and offerings to be made. Families would gather to honor their forebears, ensuring their blessings and protection for the coming year. This was a time of gratitude, reflection, and renewal as the community came together to acknowledge the cycles of life and death. Central to the festival were the rituals performed to honor the ancestors. Offerings of food, drink, and other precious items were placed at altars or burial mounds, symbolizing the bond between the living and the dead. These offerings were not merely gifts but acts of reciprocity, ensuring that the ancestors remained benevolent and supportive. Feasts were held in their honor, with the first portions of food and drink set aside for the spirits. The Vikings believed that by sharing their bounty, they could maintain harmony with the unseen world. Another key aspect of the Winter Nights Festival was the preparation for winter. As the days grew shorter and the nights colder, the Vikings focused on securing their homes and resources. Rituals were performed to bless the stored food, livestock, and tools, ensuring their survival through the harsh season. Bonfires were lit not only to provide warmth but also to symbolize the light and life that would return with the spring. These fires were often accompanied by songs, stories, and prayers, creating a sense of unity and hope within the community. The festival also included divination rituals as the Vikings sought guidance for the months ahead. Völvas or seeresses would perform ceremonies to predict the weather, the success of future harvests, and the well-being of the community. These prophecies were taken seriously, shaping decisions and preparations for the winter. The act of looking to the future while honoring the past underscored the Vikings' deep connection to the cycles of nature and time. The Winter Nights Festival was a time of both solemnity and celebration. It reminded the Vikings of their place within the larger tapestry of life, death, and rebirth. By honoring their ancestors and preparing for the challenges of winter, they reaffirmed their resilience and faith in the cycles of the natural world. As we explore this rich tradition, we gain a deeper understanding of how the Vikings navigated the changing seasons with reverence and purpose. With the Winter Nights Festival behind us, we now turn to the mysterious art of rune casting, a practice that allowed the Vikings to seek wisdom and guidance from the unseen forces around them. Now, as we step into the realm of the unseen and the mystical, we uncover the ancient practice of rune casting, a ritual that allowed the Vikings to tap into the wisdom of the gods and the forces of fate. Runes were far more than mere symbols etched into stone or wood. They were believed to hold immense power, serving as a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. For the Vikings, rune casting was not just a method of divination, but a sacred act of seeking guidance, clarity, and foresight in a world filled with uncertainty. The runes themselves were deeply symbolic, each one carrying its own unique meaning and energy. The runic alphabet, known as the Elder Futhok, consisted of 24 characters, each representing a specific concept, force, or deity. For example, the rune Fehu symbolized wealth and abundance, while Yoras represented strength and transformation. When cast, these runes were thought to reveal hidden truths, offering insights into the past, present, and future. The act of casting them was a ritual in itself, often performed by a völva or a skilled rune master who understood the intricate meanings and connections between the symbols. The ceremonies surrounding rune casting were steeped in reverence and ritual. Before casting the runes, the practitioner would often purify themselves and the space, sometimes through the use of smoke, water, or chants. The runes themselves were treated as sacred objects, often kept in a special pouch or container and handled with great care. When the time came to cast them, the practitioner would focus their intent, asking a specific question or seeking guidance on a particular matter. The runes were then scattered onto a cloth or surface, and their positions and relationships to one another were interpreted to provide answers. The interpretation of the runes was both an art and a science. The rune master would consider not only the individual meanings of the symbols but also their orientation, whether they appeared upright or reversed, and their proximity to one another. A single rune could carry a straightforward message, but when combined with others, it could reveal a more complex narrative. For instance, the rune Reidho, which signifies journeys and travel, might take on a different meaning when paired with Issa, the rune of stillness and delay. This intricate process required deep knowledge, intuition, and a connection to the spiritual realm. Rune casting played a significant role in decision-making for the Vikings. Whether it was determining the best time to plant crops, embark on a voyage, or settle a dispute, the runes provided a way to seek divine approval and insight. They were also used in personal matters such as love, health, and family, offering comfort and direction in times of need. The Vikings believed that by consulting the runes, they could align themselves with the will of the gods and the natural order of the universe. Beyond divination, runes were also used in ritual magic. They were carved into weapons, tools, and amulets to imbue them with protective or empowering properties. Inscriptions featuring runes were often found on burial stones, serving as a way to honor the dead and ensure their safe passage to the afterlife. The power of the runes was not limited to their physical form. Their very names and sounds were believed to carry magical energy, making them a vital part of Viking spiritual practices. As we delve into the mysteries of rune casting, we gain a deeper appreciation for the Vikings' connection to the unseen forces that shaped their lives. This ritual was not just about predicting the future, but about understanding the present and honoring the wisdom of the past. With the runes as their guide, the Vikings navigated the complexities of life with a sense of purpose and faith in the greater forces at play. And now, as we leave the enigmatic world of rune casting behind, we prepare to explore the sacred rituals surrounding the brewing and consumption of mead, a drink that held a special place in Viking culture and spirituality. Turning now to the heart of Viking celebrations, we find ourselves immersed in the rituals surrounding the sacred mead, a drink that was far more than a simple beverage. Mead, often referred to as the nectar of the gods, held a profound spiritual significance in Viking culture. Brewed from fermented honey, water, and sometimes herbs or fruits, mead was not just a drink of celebration but a symbol of divine connection and communal unity. The brewing of mead was itself a sacred act, often accompanied by rituals to honor the gods and ensure the drink's potency. The process began with the careful selection of ingredients, with honey being the most vital component. Honey was seen as a gift from the gods, a substance that bridged the natural and the divine. The brewing vessels, often made of wood or clay, were treated with reverence, sometimes inscribed with runes or blessings to invoke the favor of the gods. The act of brewing was often overseen by a skilled practitioner who would chant prayers or incantations as the mead fermented, infusing it with spiritual energy. Mead's connection to the gods, particularly Odin, was deeply rooted in Norse mythology. According to legend, the god Odin went to great lengths to obtain the mead of poetry, a magical brew that granted wisdom and inspiration to those who drank it. This myth elevated mead to a divine status, making it a drink of both physical and spiritual nourishment. During feasts and celebrations, mead was often poured into ceremonial drinking horns, which were passed around the gathering as a symbol of unity and shared blessings. The first sip was typically offered to the gods, poured as a libation or raised in a toast to honor their presence. In Viking society, mead played a central role in feasts and celebrations, marking important events such as weddings, victories, and seasonal festivals. These gatherings were not just social occasions but spiritual ones, where the community came together to honor the gods, ancestors, and the cycles of nature. The sharing of mead was a ritual act, reinforcing bonds between individuals and their connection to the divine. It was believed that drinking mead in the company of others could strengthen oaths, foster goodwill, and even inspire poetic or prophetic visions. The consumption of mead was also tied to the concept of hospitality, a cornerstone of Viking culture. Offering mead to guests was a way of showing respect and ensuring their protection under the laws of hospitality. Refusing a drink of mead could be seen as an insult, while accepting it was a gesture of trust and camaraderie. In this way, mead served as both a spiritual and social lubricant, easing tensions and fostering harmony within the community. Beyond its role in feasts, mead was also used in more intimate rituals, such as blessings for newborns or ceremonies to honor the dead. It was believed that the sweetness of mead could attract the favor of the gods and spirits, ensuring prosperity and protection. In some cases, mead was poured onto the ground as an offering to the land spirits or ancestors, a practice that underscored its sacred nature. As we explore the rituals surrounding mead, we gain a deeper understanding of its significance in Viking life. It was more than a drink, it was a conduit for divine connection, a symbol of unity, and a source of inspiration. The sacred mead reminds us of the Vikings' ability to infuse even the simplest acts with profound meaning, transforming everyday moments into opportunities for spiritual communion. With the echoes of mead-filled celebrations still lingering, we now turn our attention to the rituals performed to invoke the Valkyries, the fierce and enigmatic spirits who guided the fallen to Valhalla. Shifting our focus to the battlefield, we now delve into the rituals surrounding the Valkyries, the formidable female spirits of Norse mythology. These powerful beings were believed to ride through the skies during battles, selecting the bravest warriors to join Odin in Valhalla, the great hall of the slain. The Valkyries were not just passive observers, they were active participants in the fate of warriors, their favor sought through specific rituals and invocations. The Valkyries were deeply intertwined with the concept of honor and destiny in Viking culture. Warriors who fell in battle were not merely victims of fate, their deaths were seen as a sacred transition, guided by these divine choosers of the slain. To invoke the Valkyries' favor, warriors and their communities performed ceremonies designed to honor these spirits and ensure their protection. One such ritual involved the offering of weapons and armor, often placed on altars or buried in sacred ground as a tribute to the Valkyries. These offerings were believed to attract their attention and secure their blessings for the upcoming battle. Before heading into combat, warriors would often chant prayers or sing songs dedicated to the Valkyries, calling upon their strength and guidance. These invocations were not just pleas for survival but expressions of trust in the Valkyries' judgment. Warriors believed that if they fought bravely and honorably, the Valkyries would recognize their valor and grant them a place in Valhalla, where they would feast and prepare for the final battle of Ragnarok. The act of invoking the Valkyries was as much about preparing for death as it was about seeking victory, reflecting the Vikings' complex relationship with mortality and the afterlife. In addition to battlefield rituals, the Valkyries were honored during communal gatherings and festivals. Feasts held in their name often included the sharing of mead, a drink already steeped in divine significance. Toasts were raised to the Valkyries, acknowledging their role in guiding fallen warriors to their eternal reward. These celebrations were not just about honoring the spirits, but also about reinforcing the community's shared values of courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. The Valkyries' influence extended beyond the battlefield, shaping the way Vikings viewed death and destiny. Their presence in rituals served as a reminder that life was fleeting but honor was eternal. By invoking the Valkyries, warriors sought not only their favor but also a sense of purpose and connection to the divine. These rituals highlight the Vikings' belief in a world where the boundaries between life and death, the mortal and the divine, were fluid and intertwined. As we explore the Valkyrie invocations, we uncover a profound aspect of Viking spirituality, one that celebrated bravery, embraced destiny, and honored the unseen forces that shaped their lives. The rituals surrounding these powerful spirits remind us of the Vikings' deep respect for the mysteries of existence and their unwavering commitment to living and dying with honor. With the echoes of Valkyrie invocations still resonating, we now turn to the rituals honoring the sun, a symbol of life, renewal, and divine power in Viking culture. Turning our gaze skyward, we now explore the rituals of sun worship, a cornerstone of Viking spirituality that celebrated the life-giving power of the sun. For the Vikings, the sun was more than just a celestial body. It was a symbol of renewal, vitality, and divine favor. Its cyclical journey across the sky, especially during the solstices, held profound significance, marking moments of transition and rebirth in their calendar. The winter solstice, in particular, was a time of great importance. As the shortest day of the year, it represented the sun's lowest point, a moment when the world seemed cloaked in darkness. Yet, for the Vikings, this was not a time of despair but of hope. They believed that through rituals and offerings, they could ensure the sun's return, bringing light and life back to the land. Bonfires were lit across villages, their flames symbolizing the enduring power of the sun. These fires were not just practical sources of warmth but sacred acts of devotion, meant to encourage the sun to rise again. During the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the rituals took on a different tone. This was a time of celebration as the sun reached its peak strength. Communities gathered to honor the sun's life-giving energy, often holding feasts and games in its name. Sacred stones and altars were adorned with flowers and offerings, while prayers were chanted to express gratitude for the sun's bounty. The summer solstice was also a time for divination, as the Vikings believed the heightened energy of the sun could reveal insights into the future. The sun's symbolism extended beyond the solstices, permeating everyday Viking life. It was seen as a protector, its light warding off evil spirits and ensuring the fertility of the land. Farmers would often perform small rituals at sunrise, offering grains or milk to the sun as thanks for its blessings. Even in their art and mythology, the sun held a prominent place. The goddess Sol, who drove the sun's chariot across the sky, was revered as a guardian of life and order. Her daily journey was a reminder of the delicate balance between light and darkness, a theme that resonated deeply with the Vikings' worldview. These rituals of sun worship were not just acts of faith but expressions of the Vikings' connection to the natural world. They understood that their survival depended on the sun's cycles, and their ceremonies reflected a profound respect for its power. By honoring the sun, they sought to align themselves with its energy, ensuring prosperity and harmony in their lives. As we reflect on these rituals, we see how the Vikings' reverence for the sun shaped their culture and spirituality. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light would return, and with it, the promise of renewal. This belief in the sun's enduring power continues to inspire, offering a timeless lesson in resilience and hope. With the warmth of the sun still lingering in our thoughts, we now turn to the rituals of ancestral feasts, where the Vikings honored those who came before them, ensuring their legacy lived on. Shifting our focus from the celestial to the familial, we now delve into the rituals of ancestral feasts, a deeply rooted tradition that connected the Vikings to their past. These feasts were more than just gatherings, they were sacred acts of remembrance, ensuring that the wisdom and protection of ancestors continued to guide the living. The Vikings believed that their ancestors played an active role in their lives, offering guidance, protection, and blessings from the afterlife. To honor this bond, they held elaborate feasts, particularly during key festivals like Winter Nights, which marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. These feasts were not merely celebrations but acts of reverence, designed to strengthen the connection between the living and the dead. At the heart of these gatherings was the belief that ancestors could influence the fortunes of their descendants. To ensure their favor, the Vikings prepared offerings of food, drink, and other valuables. These were placed on altars or in special areas of the home, often accompanied by prayers and invocations. The most common offerings included bread, meat, and mead, symbolizing sustenance and prosperity. By sharing these gifts, the living sought to nourish their ancestors in the afterlife, ensuring their continued goodwill. The rituals surrounding these feasts were rich with symbolism. Tables were set with extra places for the ancestors, and the first portion of food and drink was often poured onto the ground or into a fire as an offering. This act of sharing was seen as a way to bridge the gap between worlds, inviting the ancestors to partake in the feast. Songs and stories were also central to these gatherings, as they served to keep the memory of the ancestors alive. Through these tales, the virtues and deeds of the past were celebrated, inspiring the living to uphold their legacy. One of the most significant aspects of these feasts was the sense of community they fostered. Families and clans would come together, reinforcing their bonds and reaffirming their shared identity. The act of feasting itself was seen as a way to strengthen the collective spirit, ensuring that the community remained united in the face of challenges. This unity was believed to be a source of strength both in the physical world and in the spiritual realm. The timing of these feasts was also carefully chosen. Winter Nights, for example, was a time of transition when the veil between the worlds was thought to be at its thinnest. This made it an ideal moment to communicate with the ancestors, seeking their guidance for the coming winter. The rituals performed during this festival were not just about honoring the past but also about preparing for the future, ensuring that the community would thrive even in the harshest of seasons. As we reflect on these ancestral feasts, we see how they embodied the Vikings' deep respect for their heritage. These rituals were a way of acknowledging the debt they owed to those who came before them, ensuring that their legacy would endure. By honoring their ancestors, the Vikings sought to draw strength from the past, using it to navigate the challenges of the present and the uncertainties of the future. With the echoes of these feasts still resonating, we now turn to the rituals of shield maidens, where the fierce spirit of Viking women warriors comes to life. Now, stepping into the realm of fierce warriors, we uncover the rituals of the shield maidens, the formidable female fighters of the Viking Age. These women were not just legends of the sagas, but real-life figures who stood shoulder to shoulder with men in battle, embodying strength, courage, and resilience. Their rituals were as much a part of their identity as their skill with a sword or shield. Shield maidens underwent rigorous training from a young age, learning the art of combat alongside traditional domestic skills. This dual preparation was a reflection of their unique role in Viking society, where they balanced the demands of war with the responsibilities of home and family. Their training was not just physical but also spiritual, as they were taught to channel the power of the gods, particularly Freyja, the goddess of war and fertility, who was often seen as their patron. Before heading into battle, shield maidens participated in ceremonies designed to invoke divine favor and ensure victory. These rituals often involved offerings to the gods, such as weapons, jewelry, or even blood sacrifices. They would also engage in chants and prayers, calling upon the spirits of their ancestors and the gods to grant them strength and protection. One common practice was the donning of ceremonial armor, often adorned with symbols of power and protection, such as the Valknut or the image of a raven, both associated with Odin, the god of war. The role of shield maidens extended beyond the battlefield. In Viking society, they were seen as symbols of balance, embodying both the nurturing and the warrior aspects of life. Their presence in battle was believed to bring good fortune, and their courage inspired those around them. Shield maidens were also known to take on leadership roles, guiding their communities through times of conflict and ensuring the survival of their people. One of the most fascinating aspects of shield maiden rituals was their connection to the afterlife. Like their male counterparts, shield maidens aspired to reach Valhalla, the hall of the slain, where they would feast and fight alongside the gods. To ensure their passage, they often carried talismans or performed specific rites before battle, such as swearing oaths of loyalty to their chieftains or dedicating their victories to the gods. The legacy of the shield maidens is a testament to the complexity of Viking society, where women could rise to prominence as warriors and leaders. Their rituals were a blend of the spiritual and the practical, reflecting their dual roles as protectors and providers. Through their courage and dedication, they left an indelible mark on history, proving that the spirit of the Viking warrior was not confined by gender. As we leave the world of shield maidens behind, we turn our attention to the sacred groves, where the Vikings sought communion with the gods and spirits of the land. Moving from the battlefield to the heart of nature, we now explore the sacred groves, spaces where the Vikings felt closest to the divine. These groves were not just clusters of trees but hallowed grounds, believed to be inhabited by the gods and spirits of the land. For the Vikings, these natural sanctuaries were places of worship, reflection, and communion with the unseen forces that shaped their world. Sacred groves were often located in secluded areas, far from the bustle of daily life. They were chosen for their natural beauty and the sense of awe they inspired, with towering trees, clear streams, and quiet glades creating an atmosphere of reverence. These groves were considered so sacred that harming them in any way was forbidden. Even breaking a branch or disturbing the soil was seen as an act of disrespect to the spirits who dwelled there. Within these groves, the Vikings performed a variety of rituals, each designed to honor the gods and seek their favor. One of the most common ceremonies was the offering of gifts, such as food, drink, or precious items, placed at the base of a tree or on a stone altar. These offerings were meant to show gratitude or ask for blessings, whether for a bountiful harvest, protection in battle, or guidance in times of uncertainty. Another important ritual was the Blót, a sacrificial ceremony that often took place in sacred groves. Animals, typically livestock, were sacrificed to the gods, and their blood was sprinkled on the trees and altars as a way of sealing the bond between the human and divine realms. The meat from these sacrifices was then cooked and shared in a communal feast, symbolizing the unity of the community and their shared connection to the gods. The sacred groves were also places of divination and prophecy. Seers and völvas, the female practitioners of magic, would visit these groves to perform rituals that allowed them to communicate with the spirits and gain insight into the future. They might cast runes, interpret the rustling of leaves, or listen for the whispers of the gods in the wind. These practices were deeply respected as they provided guidance for both individuals and the community as a whole. The connection between the sacred groves and the gods was profound. Each grove was often associated with a specific deity, such as Thor, the god of thunder, or Freyja, the goddess of fertility and love. The trees themselves were seen as living embodiments of the gods, their roots reaching deep into the earth and their branches stretching toward the heavens. This duality made the groves a powerful symbol of the Vikings' belief in the interconnectedness of all things. As we leave the tranquility of the sacred groves, we prepare to delve into the rituals of brotherhood, where bonds of loyalty and kinship were forged in the most solemn of ceremonies. Now, as we step away from the sacred groves and into the realm of human connection, we uncover one of the most profound rituals in Viking culture, the Oath of Brotherhood. This ritual was not just a simple promise but a sacred bond, often sealed with blood, that tied individuals together in unbreakable loyalty and kinship. For the Vikings, such oaths were more than words. They were a merging of fates, a declaration that two lives would forever be intertwined in purpose and destiny. The ceremony of blood brotherhood was a deeply symbolic act, often performed in the presence of witnesses and under the watchful eyes of the gods. Two individuals would cut their palms or forearms, allowing their blood to mingle as a physical representation of their unity. This act was believed to create a spiritual connection, binding their lives together in a way that even death could not sever. The mingling of blood was seen as a sacred exchange, a pact that transcended the mortal world and entered the realm of the divine. Alongside the blood exchange, oaths were sworn on sacred objects such as Thor's hammer, amulets, or rings, to invoke the gods as witnesses and enforcers of the bond. These objects were not mere symbols but conduits of divine power, ensuring that the oath was taken with the utmost seriousness. Breaking such an oath was considered one of the gravest offenses, as it not only betrayed the trust of a brother but also dishonored the gods who had witnessed the pact. The significance of these oaths extended far beyond the individuals involved. In Viking society, where alliances and loyalty were crucial for survival, the Oath of Brotherhood served as a foundation for trust and cooperation. It was common for warriors to swear such oaths before embarking on raids or battles, ensuring that they would fight side by side, protect one another, and share both the spoils of victory and the burdens of defeat. These bonds often formed the backbone of Viking war bands, creating a sense of unity and purpose that was essential for their success. But the Oath of Brotherhood was not limited to warriors. It was also used to solidify alliances between families, tribes, or even entire communities. By swearing such an oath, two groups could forge a lasting peace, ensuring mutual protection and support. In a world where conflict was common, these rituals provided a way to build trust and stability, transforming potential enemies into lifelong allies. As we reflect on the Oath of Brotherhood, we see how deeply the Vikings valued loyalty and kinship. These rituals were not just about creating bonds, but about affirming the interconnectedness of life, where every promise carried the weight of the divine and every bond was a thread in the fabric of their society. With this understanding, we now turn to the final ritual in our journey, the preparations for the ultimate voyage to the afterlife. As we approach the final chapter of our exploration into the lost rituals of the Viking sagas, we arrive at a moment that transcends life itself, the final journey. For the Vikings, death was not an end but a passage, a sacred transition to the afterlife that required careful preparation and profound reverence. The rituals surrounding this journey were as intricate as they were meaningful, ensuring that the deceased were honored and equipped for what lay beyond. The final journey began with the preparation of the body, a process steeped in symbolism and care. The deceased were often dressed in their finest garments, sometimes even in armor if they were warriors, to reflect their status and achievements in life. Personal belongings, known as grave goods, were carefully selected to accompany them. These items ranged from weapons and tools to jewelry and household objects, each chosen to serve a purpose in the afterlife. For a warrior, a sword might be included to ensure they could fight in the halls of Valhalla, while a farmer might be buried with a sickle to tend the fields of the next world. The Vikings believed that the afterlife was not a single destination but a realm of possibilities, shaped by the deeds and status of the individual. Valhalla, the Hall of Odin, awaited those who died bravely in battle, offering eternal feasting and camaraderie. For others, the afterlife might take them to Hell, a more peaceful realm ruled by the goddess of the same name, or to the fields of Fylgja overseen by Freyr. The rituals performed were designed to guide the deceased to their rightful place, ensuring they were welcomed and honored by the gods. One of the most striking aspects of the final journey was the funeral itself. Depending on the status of the deceased, this could involve a grand ship burial, where the body was placed in a vessel and set ablaze, symbolizing their voyage to the afterlife. The ship, often filled with grave goods and sometimes even sacrificed animals or servants, was a powerful representation of the journey ahead. As the flames consumed the ship, it was believed that the smoke carried the soul to the gods, completing the transition from the mortal world to the divine. For those who did not receive a ship burial, other rituals were performed to honor their passage. Burial mounds, often marked with stones or wooden markers, served as both a resting place and a connection to the living. These mounds were sometimes visited by family members, who would leave offerings or perform ceremonies to maintain the bond between the living and the dead. The belief in an ongoing relationship with ancestors was central to Viking culture, and these rituals ensured that the deceased remained a part of the community, even in death. The final journey was not just about the physical preparation of the body or the grave goods, it was also a spiritual process. Prayers, chants, and invocations were offered to the gods, asking for their guidance and protection as the deceased embarked on their voyage. The living sought to ensure that their loved ones were not only remembered but also granted a place of honor in the afterlife. This deep connection between the living and the dead highlights the Vikings' belief in the continuity of existence, where death was not an end but a transformation. As we conclude our journey through the lost rituals of the Viking sagas, we are reminded of the profound respect and reverence the Vikings held for life, death, and the mysteries that lie beyond. These rituals were not just ceremonies, they were expressions of a worldview that saw every moment as part of a greater tapestry, woven together by the threads of loyalty, honor, and faith. Which of these rituals resonated most with you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the fascinating world of historical mysteries. As we bring our journey through the 30 lost rituals of the Viking sagas to a close, it's impossible not to marvel at the depth and richness of these ancient practices. Each ritual, from the solemn Blót sacrifices to the awe-inspiring ship burials, offers a window into the Viking worldview, a world where the sacred and the everyday were deeply intertwined. These ceremonies were not just acts of tradition, they were the heartbeat of Viking society, shaping their values, their relationships, and their understanding of life and death. The Vikings saw their rituals as a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a way to honor the gods, connect with ancestors, and ensure prosperity and protection for their communities. Whether it was the fierce energy of the Berserker warriors or the quiet reverence of the Alpha Blót, each ritual served a purpose, reflecting the Vikings' deep respect for the forces that governed their lives. These practices were not static. They evolved over time, adapting to new challenges and influences, yet always retaining their core significance. What's truly remarkable is how these rituals continue to captivate us today. They remind us of a time when the world was filled with mystery and wonder, when every action, whether in battle, in celebration, or in mourning, was imbued with meaning. The Viking sagas, with their tales of gods, heroes, and magic, have left an indelible mark on our collective imagination, inspiring countless stories, artworks, and even modern traditions. As we reflect on these 30 lost rituals, it's clear that they were more than just ceremonies. They were the threads that wove together the fabric of Viking life. They shaped their identity, their sense of purpose, and their connection to the world around them. And while the Viking age may be long gone, the legacy of these rituals lives on, inviting us to explore, to question, and to marvel at the ingenuity and spirit of a people who dared to navigate both the seas and the mysteries of existence. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Which of these rituals resonated most with you? Was it the dramatic ship burials, the enigmatic Seiðr magic, or perhaps the communal spirit of the Thing assemblies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're eager to hear which aspects of Viking culture captured your imagination. And if you've enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more explorations into the fascinating world of historical mysteries. Until next time, keep exploring, keep wondering, and keep uncovering the stories that connect us to our shared human heritage.